Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be taking a look at the EMAX Babyhawk Pro. So this is their updated 2.5 inch Pro version of the Babyhawk R. It's a little bit more expensive than the 2-inch version at the making of this video. This is the bind and fly. So let's take a look at the specifications, starting off with the motors. Now, they have stayed with the 1106 size and also, surprisingly, 6000 kV as well. Now, I flew the Skystars 2.5 inch model and they went lower on the kV. They went 4500 and that allowed it to run on a 4-cell battery, and that one absolutely screamed and had so much power. With this one, we are going to be stuck to a 3-cell battery, I think. Now I'm going to be using this 550 milliamp GMB battery. I'd say it was more designed for a 650 milliamp 3S battery myself, but I don't have any of those in. So we've got this different canopy on the top there, kind of looks like a beetle. We've got some camera protection up the front there as well. The propellers are the Avan Rush 2.5 inch propellers. They are a strange design. One thing to note about them is that they've got a very tight thread on here, so you're given these screws to put the props on, and if you're not careful you can really damage the motors trying to screw them in. So the best thing I find to do is actually put the screws in before you've put the props on the motor, so have a bit of thread coming out the other side. Then when you plonk the propeller on the top, you can sort of wiggle it around and you'll get a click when the screws have lined up. Then you can screw it in, otherwise you end up ruining the motor. So just a small thing to note there. Yeah, so we've got a unibody frame here and we've just got the 3 screws for the motors there, which should be fine. We've got this battery strap, which is it's okay quality, but would I call it pro quality? Not so sure. This definitely is pro quality though. We have got a silicon mat there and it's higher than all of the screws, so we're not going to get our battery rubbing against that. And then the guts here, we have the EMAX Mini Magnum Stack, I think it's called. So we have got 20 amp BL Halley 32-bit, and then we've got the F4 flight controller, and then we have got the VTX, which this time does have smart audio. However, it comes locked out of the box, so what you have to do to unlock it is we've got a single screw there. It's 1.5 mil. That allows you to lift this up. Then there is a button on the side there. You hold it down, and then when you plug in your battery you'll get a U for unlocked, or if you plug it in and get an L, then it's locked. So that locks a few of the channels, and it also means that it's stuck at 25 milliwatts. So if you want to go higher than 25 milliwatt, you're going to have to unlock it. So next we have got the camera. Now this surprised me a little bit. You see it's got EMAX written on it, but if we look underneath, it's a Cadex camera. Now I've always associated Cadex cameras as being a budget camera rather than a pro camera, but it looks like EMAX have worked in conjunction with Cadex here. But yeah, the camera on the original Babyhawk was a Foxia camera, more of a premium brand I would say, but maybe this is the way that they are trying to get Cadex as a premium brand and not more of a budget brand. Anyways, as for the connector this time, we have got a low ESR capacitor actually on the connector rather than soldered direct to the ESCs, so I'll have to see what the noise reduction is like through the FPV feed again. Usually tend to find that when you have the capacitor sort of lengthened from the ESCs that they're not as effective. So yeah, again, have to see how that performs. And we've got the antenna coming out of the top here, so it's a sleeve dipole antenna. So you're going to want to be using something like this, which is a Menace patch, and I use that along with a Onway cloverleaf and then the True Diversity system here to get a decent signal. I just want to note as well, there's no real fixing on the antenna, so you know that could easily go in the prop. Same with the receiver. Something that's called Pro, I would have expected, you know, this maybe to be fixed, and you know, this one here could even come out on a little cable tie down here, but you know, maybe I'm just being a little bit picky. This is the bind and fly version, and it's come with a FrSky D8 receiver, so it has got the RSSI on one of the aux channels, but again, D8, is that Pro? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's fine for this model, but for me, Pro would be maybe an RXSR with telemetry hooked up, for example. It's also quite difficult to get to the bind button of the receiver. Really, you have to take the canopy off, and when you press the button, it's just on foam. So when you press it, the foam just moves, so it's quite tricky to hold the button. Now, unfortunately, the receiver does not power up from the USB. It powers up from the battery, so you really have to mess around getting it to bind up. But it can be done. Just be careful, because you get one hell of a crack noise when you plug the battery in because of this capacitor here. So let's take a look what else you get in the box. You get this manual, and it tells you how to unlock the VTX and all of the specs and things like that. Just like the Babyhawk R, it's set up in Betaflight pretty nicely. There's a couple of things I've changed, so I'll take you through that. We've got a load of spare screws, and we've also got the controller for the Cadex camera as well. So it's the Turbo Micro S1, and we've got a spare set of these Avan Rush propellers, and that's everything that you get. Alrighty, let's have a quick gander in Betaflight. So I've gone to the ports tab here. Loads of UART, and it's got the serial RX for S-Bus on the UART 2, and you can see on the UART 5 it's already got TBS Smart Audio on there, and nothing else set up. So if we go into configuration, we've got D-Shot 600 here. Now this is interesting. They've set the motor idle to 8%. That's quite high, and they've got their own stock rates in there, so I wonder if that's why they have done that. Because obviously the lower this figure is, the more chance you have of a flip of death, because if you've got a high rate, then it can cause the motor to have to stop on low throttle for it to be able to reach that rate. So they've gone with 8%. I usually do 6% myself. So we've got 8K, 4K on the PID loop frequency there. And we've got the arm state at 25. I'm going to leave that, but I would change that to 180. Let's have a look down here. So we've got dynamic filter on, anti-gravity, on-screen display and air mode, LED strip. So yeah, it does have some LEDs, but it's built into the flight controller, interestingly. And it's got soft serial turned on, but I don't think it's using a soft serial. So yeah, that's everything in there. Power and battery, I had to change this because this was just stock settings. So it's got a buzzer built into the flight controller, so if you used the stock settings there, then your buzzer's just going to go off at the top of the throttle. So I always reduce these to 2.9 and then look at my on-screen display for my battery voltage, and then I've upped this to 4.6 in case I want to use a high volt. So if we go into PID tuning, so I thought the PIDs were quite unusual. These look very similar to stock Betaflight PIDs, but I've used them, and these are the stock rates as well, so I have left that. We've got VBAT PID compensation turned on, and we don't have any TPA in there, and anti-gravity gain just at 1 there. So let's check out filter settings there. So it's using PT1, and it has got the your low pass filter turned off and these ones on there. So I'm just going to fly it like this because, you know, they give it to pilots to fly and tune. But yeah, that just, it looks similar sort of stock PIDs to me. So the receiver tab was already set to TAER1234. Interestingly, the RSSI was set to the wrong aux channel. So this little D8 receiver outputs the RSSI on the aux 5, but they had it selected to aux 4. However, it still didn't work because if we go back into the configuration, it got this turned on, RSSI ADC. So yeah, maybe a little mistake there. I'm seeing a couple of little mistakes, which is unusual for EMAX. I mean, this is an early model, but yeah, the RSSI was just reading, you know, 12% all of the time because it was expecting this RSSI signal. So if you're having problems with that, that's how to fix that. But where the receiver tab. Yeah, so RC deadband was in there as 2, and all of this stick stuff I've just left the same there. So modes, I've left this the same. I just had to move the sliders just a little bit. So arming here, I think this was on the aux 1 and I swapped aux 1 and aux 2 around. We've got angle here, so acro and air here, and then there's horizon mode in there, and there's also got a beeper setup as well. On screen display, again, I've left it how they had it. So we've got the flight time, battery voltage, RSSI, and the name of the copter. I would also put in a couple of other things as well, such as the VTX channel. I find that quite helpful, you know, when you've got smart audio and things. But again, you know, I'm just gonna leave it as it is, because, you know, that's how you guys like me to review these out of the box. And let's take a look at LED strips. So it does have something in there, but yeah, you can't really see the LEDs. It shines through the canopy, and it's got Betaflight version 3.32, so fairly old now. And then we've got the target as the MKF4. Alrighty, let's line of sight this guy and see what it's like. So with that 8% motor idle, it jumps off the ground, and we've got just a couple of clicks of throttle on my ratchet to get it hovering. So with a 2.5-inch model, sadly they are just too small to pick up on my speed meter, so that's why I've come to do a line of sight with it, so we can get some idea of the punch, and then when I do the FPV flight, I should get some indication of the speed. So let's go for a punch. Oh yeah, that punch is not bad. Takes some time to come down though with that idle like that. I just wonder if they've done that to be conservative with the flips of death, or if it can come down a little bit. I usually like to stick it at about 6%. Now I am hearing what I would call some slight D-term oscillations when the D gain is too high, but to be fair to this copter, I'm only running a 550 milliamp battery when really 650 milliamp would be better, so it's probably been tuned for that. I did find it quite interesting that the D gain was pretty high though. It looked like it was tuned for a 5-inch, but I suppose if it's, you know, if it needs it, then it needs it. But yeah, we've got a fair amount of punch here. Absolutely loads. Yeah, I would estimate maybe 70 to 80 mile per hour. I do think that Skystars model that did 4S, it felt a little bit quicker, but what does that really mean? You know, these micros at this size, the 2-inch or 2.5-inch, to me they're not so much about speed and racing, they're more about having fun. And yeah, apart from that slight D-term oscillation, and again I think that's down to the battery, it's feeling really smooth actually, very smooth indeed, which is something that EMAX are good at. But yeah, I'm having too much fun with this one. Yeah, I'd go 650 milliamp on the battery, I think, as I imagine we'll probably be getting a sub 3-minute flight time with this 550 milliamp. I can feel it getting sluggish, so I'll bring it in for a landing and we'll do some FPV with it. So, just as I suspected, this thing flies superb. I guess you can expect that from EMAX because they give the model to pilots and they tune them. And even though the PIDs are very similar to stock Betaflight PIDs, it flies so smooth. And just look how much power it's got. I would guesstimate that it's going around about 80 mile per hour there. I don't think it's quite as fast as that Skystars 2.5-inch model, but it doesn't really matter at this size. You know, it's more about flying freestyle, and I think this flies better than the Skystars and is set up better. So next, let's talk about the camera. So I was quite impressed with the Cadex camera, actually. I don't think it's quite as good as a Runcam or a Foxeer, but you know, when it came out, I think it was 16 GBP, so it's pretty good for that. Whether I would put it on a model and call it Pro, not sure. And I'm not sure what lens it's got on there either. It doesn't detail it. I think when it came out, you could either have it in a 2.1mm or 2.3. Either way, the field of view is wide enough for me. As for the video reception and quality, we've got minimal breakup and minimal noise. There's a little bit of video noise when I plugged the battery, and maybe that's something to do with the capacitor being on the connector rather than on the ESCs, but when you arm it, that noise seems to go away, so it's not really a problem. There's a couple of other things that I noted as well. There's no audio that feeds through to the VTX. The ESCs do seem to be recognized in BL Heli 32, but there's some unknown firmware that it comes up with, and then DShot 1200 isn't supported. I tried it and it wouldn't arm, so I'm not really benefiting from 32-bit there, just using DShot 600. As for the smart audio, it came on setting 5, I think, which is like the setting just below 800 milliwatts. Now, it doesn't detail in the manual what the power outputs are. However, I checked, and anything above 25 milliwatt in the on-screen display setting is 200 milliwatt. So there you go, that is my review of the EMAX Babyhawk R Pro. I think they probably should have called it the Babyhawk R2 because it's more of an updated version of the Babyhawk R than a Pro version of it, I would say. You know, it's lacking things like telemetry, we don't have DShot 1200, so yeah, it's a fantastic model. I just think I've been thrown off by the name of it, perhaps. Anyways, I will link it in the below, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.